welcome back to my channel. I'm Maddie if you're new. Today I wanted to share 10 tips for making your home feel cozy and homey. And I specifically wanted to share some things that I haven't heard other people on YouTube talk about. That's not to say these are like completely original ideas or anything like that and that no one's ever talked about them, but I do feel like when I click on videos like this, normally I see a lot of very similar things about, introducing more soft things like blankets and pillows and candles and, thrifted books and things like that into your space. And while I think those are great tips, I have some ones that are a little bit more niche that hopefully will give you some inspiration for your own homes to make them feel uniquely you and cozy and homey. So the first 5 are kind of like tips and the last 5 are sort of swaps. So if you feel like your home is feeling a little bit cold or just not cozy and inviting, these are good things you can swap in and out to really like move in the right direction. My first tip is to group and display your sort of collections of items more intentionally. So maybe you have some shelves in your living room. Instead of just filling each space with an item or a piece of decor, make little collections. Maybe you have a collection of plants and those plants are scattered all around your house. Try bringing a lot of those plants together and organizing them sort of together in a nice grouping on one single table or, shelf or just area of your home. Or maybe you collect cute little knickknacks that you find at the thrift store. Instead of scattering them around your house, try bringing them together and creating a collection in one spot. In my opinion, this makes your space feel more curated and creative and like an extension of yourself because it feels like a bunch of valuable items as opposed to just seeing empty spaces in your home and going to Home Goods, for example, to buy something to fill each space. I think that's a trap that a lot of people fall into, and it ends up making your home feel like everyone else's. But if you lean into the things that you gravitate towards, the things that you maybe decorate with anyway, just sort of naturally, and then group those together into collections, I think that is a really good way to make your home feel more cozy and you. My second tip is to avoid, when you can, fake materials or faux materials and use more organic materials. I do hear people talk about this a lot, and I feel like it can come off a bit pretentious to say use only organic materials and materials found in nature, but I want to explain a little bit about why it's so important. If you do want your home to feel cozy, which many of us do, it's really important to lean into sort of the nature, sort of naturally occurring colors, textures, materials, and things like that, as opposed to the man-made ones, especially the more like factory produced ones. Every item that you have has an energy to it. You know what I mean? Like you can touch and feel and look at a lamp or a table, and it has its own energy. It has like a vibe that it gives off. And if you pay close attention, you'll start to notice that an old wood chair or table has a much more friendly and inviting and cozy energy than a chair or a table that's made out of metal or plastic or something that's more man-made. We as humans are naturally occurring. We are part of nature, if you want to think about it like that. And so surrounding ourselves with things that feel like natural is a way to make your home feel more cozy. And I know that's a weird way of thinking about it, but I do really like to remind myself of that, when I'm bringing something into my space. Even if it's subconscious, the vibe of an item really does make a difference. So an example of this that's really common in a lot of homes that were built or renovated more recently in the last 10 years is laminate floors. Specifically, I do not like the ones that are gray toned, very cool tones. The reason that they don't feel as cozy is because gray wood doesn't really show up in nature very much. You know, like when you think of a tree or, you know, cutting down wood to start a fire or build a piece of furniture, that wood has warmer tones in it. Some trees have a grayer tone, you know, for sure, but for the most part, things out in nature are warm browns, greens, yellows, oranges, reds, you know, things like that, more warm tone colors. And so when we bring things like that into our space, it does make our space feel more cozy. Of course, we may not have the option in our home to change out the floors. So if you do have floors that are that gray wood or that are laminate floors or, you know, faux wood, it can be really helpful to cover, you know, a large area of that space with an area rug or something like that, so that it just sort of fades into the background and isn't super prominent in the design. That goes for things on a smaller scale too, like furniture. If you're bringing a table into your space, for example, I would suggest opting for something made from wood, even something like very old and thrifted, honestly like cheap. Can be a much better option than something that you find on Amazon that is like fake wood or plastic. If you're not yet into thrifting, you would be very surprised how much it helps to bring something old, even if it's very imperfect, into your space when it comes to coziness versus buying something from a big box store or something that was kind of like factory made. My third tip is to balance shapes and textures. So this tip is kind of like on the flip side of what I've been saying. So let's say you really want to make your home feel cozy, but you feel like everything that you bring into your space that's like really soft is making your home feel like too cheap or not very elevated or adult, and it's starting to feel more like a dorm room or, you know, something like that. It might be that you're not balancing the shapes and textures in your space quite enough. So if I'm designing my living room, a comfy couch is so important to me. I will never bring in a couch into my space that is just for the looks. I always want to be comfy. I watch a lot of TV, watch a lot of YouTube, and I spend a lot of time on my couch, to be honest. And I want it to be so comfy. That is like the most important thing to me when it comes to my couch and like my living room space. And if you're the same way, then by all means, get the comfiest couch you can. Some comfy couches are cuter than others, but I try not to worry too much about having a couch that like looks really nice, because you're gonna balance that with other things in the space. So let's say you have a super slouchy, you know, couch that just looks kind of like frumpy a little bit. That's okay. Lean into that and choose items to go around that couch that are a little bit more structured, if that makes sense. So think like clean lines, harder materials, maybe like sharper edges to really balance out that oversized look and feel of like a really fluffy couch. Instead of having like an ottoman or something next to your couch or in front of your couch, go with a table with a hard surface. Or instead of having maybe like an accent chair that's also super fluffy and comfy, have that accent chair be something that is more clean cut, minimal, sort of like shapes. That makes sense? Okay, my fourth tip is to decorate with your mess. I really think that keeping your house tidy and organized is a way to keep it feeling really cozy. A cozy space is a space you want to spend time in, and if your space is super messy and cluttered, you're not gonna wanna spend time in it, you're not gonna feel comfortable in it. But that does not mean that you have to have everything put away at all times in your house. I think a really good way of making your home feel like yours and feel sort of unique and personal to you is by displaying the things that you love to use. So for example, I like to crochet. So in my living room, I have a cute little basket with my current crochet project where like the balls of yarn that I'm using and my crochet hook and, you know, the current project sort of like stuck under there. And I just have that basket out on my coffee table as part of my decor. Maybe you really like to cook, so in the kitchen you could get a cute little like book stand and have a cookbook open to one of your favorite favorite recipes. You could even curate a cute little moment over there with like some oven mitts and I don't know, like a pretty spoon or something like that to sort of just inspire you to do the things that you love to do and not feel like you have to hide those things away all the time. I feel like this is so helpful if you're feeling like your space feels very sterile or boring or just not very personal to you. Other ideas, my sister and her boyfriend have been playing a lot of chess. And so I think it would be so cute to just keep the chessboard out and like kind of have it nice and neat out on like a coffee table or, you know, some sort of table where you're sort of reminded to play every once in a while, but also it acts as decor in itself, especially if you have like a cute chess set. I have a lot of ideas for this, but the last one I'll share, like even if it's just about making coffee, maybe you make coffee every single morning. Maybe next to your coffee maker, you stack up like 3 really cute coffee mugs, like that are your favorite ones. And, you know, have like a cute bag of coffee grounds out that has like, you know, a cute logo on it or whatever. I just love that kind of thing because it shows people who walk into your home some things that you love. It's a good conversation starter and it just makes your home feel like an extension of you. Number 5 is to decorate with art that you have some sort of connection to. So you don't always have to do this, but let's say that you like to make art, even if it's just like cute little collages. I've shown this in so many of my videos recently, but I really like to cut out cute little papers from like packaging that I collect or magazines or just literally anything that I find and pair them together and make like a pretty, very minimal collage. That's something that I have a huge connection to because I remember creating that myself and it's one of my favorite pieces of art that I have up in my house. Even if you yourself are not super creative or artistic in that specific sense, maybe you have a friend who is or a family member who is. I have a piece of art that my great grandma made that I always have up in my house. I always have something up somewhere that my mom painted, and even if it's not like an amazing piece of art, matting it and putting it in a frame does wonders. Like it can be something that your 3-year-old made, and if you mat it and put it in a frame, like a big mat around like a small little picture even, I feel like always looks so cool. You can put that up and it will look like so sort of elevated and, you know, like really, really good, as opposed to, you know, just like something that you like pin up on the fridge. It really, really helps, and I feel like it makes it feel that much more special. So don't even feel like you have to make art or, you know, get your family members to make art that's like out of this world amazing. It could just be anything that has meaning to you. I also love going to art markets. A lot of times art is expensive and for good reason. You know, artists should charge a lot for their art. But I do like to sometimes try to purchase art from an artist I can actually meet face to face at an art market. But even if you don't do that, going to a thrift store and finding a piece of art that really speaks to you feels, at least to me, so much more special than going to a big box store like Target or something and buying a piece of art from there, which I have done. And there's some things that I have bought from Target that for some reason I just love and I won't get rid of. But I think if all of your art or all the things you have framed in your home are like that, and your home's starting to feel a little bit boring or not very cozy, that can be a really good thing to sort of switch out and get some more art that feels a little bit more personal or that you have a connection to. Okay, this last section is 5 sort of niche swaps that can make your home more cozy. So first is replacing curtain rods that look like this with curtain rods that look like this. These are called French return rods, and by design they hide all of the hardware behind your curtains. So you don't have sort of like those balls sticking out of the end. You can't see the end of the curtain rod because the shape sort of returns and goes back into the wall so that your curtain can sort of hide all of that hardware. If this isn't your style, that's totally cool, but I find that it really helps in making a space feel more cozy because you're not seeing like metal quite as much. You're just seeing like the curtain. I personally really love that look, and I just think it makes your space feel super homey. You can find French return rods on Amazon. I've never found them at like a Target, Walmart, or Lowe's or anything like that, but I have found them on Amazon before, so they're pretty much just as easy to get as any other rod. Next, replace some metal with some wood. So this kind of goes back to what I was saying about organic materials, but even more, it's just like the feel of the material. Metal like brass, gold, silver, or even like fake silver, you know, silver gold looking things are obviously very hard in texture. And they just feel more man-made and less cozy than something like wood. Even though wood is physically a hard object, it has just a more organic, cozy energy about it. If you have metal frames or mirrors in your home, maybe swap one or two out for wood ones. They could be painted wood or raw wood. It doesn't really matter. It will make a little bit of a difference, and I think it'll just give that space, again, more balance and more coziness. Next, along similar lines, is to replace a few things that are rectangles with a few things that are round. So we'll use the same example, like a mirror or a picture frame or an art frame. If you've got a lot of rectangles, those are a lot of sharp edges around the space for your eye to kind of catch on. And having elements in your home that are more rounded can be a really good way to break that up and make it feel like a little bit more soft. Maybe swap out a rectangular pillow for like one of those cylindrical pillows, or swap out like a standard cylindrical lampshade for one that's more dome shaped. A cylindrical lampshade from the side, like from whatever view you're going to be viewing it at, looks like a rectangle. So if you find one that looks more like a dome, that creates a more rounded shape in your space too. The arch shape is also a good one to break up those rectangles. It's kind of like somewhere in the middle because it's got that rounded edge and the sharp edge at the bottom. Those are just a few examples, but I think you catch my drift on the shapes. My next swap is if you have the option to paint your walls, like if you're kind of sick of your walls but you don't know what to do, the simplest change is to turn a gray or stark white wall into a warm white wall. And when you're looking at the samples, you know, you might be like, this is not going to make a difference, but it does. It makes a huge difference to have like a warmer tone white all around you as like your canvas for your space. So a lot of homes, like I said, these days we've been home touring, and so I have seen so many homes on Zillow and in real life in the past few weeks, and it's amazing how many of them are painted gray. And some people may like that, but if you're going for cozy, that is not the way to go. Just painting the walls a warmer gray, like the one that we used in our previous house is called Swiss Coffee by Benjamin Moore. There are obviously basically infinite warm whites that you could use. If you want to like explore more, go on to like just Google Benjamin Moore Swiss Coffee and scroll down, and it'll show you similar ones. It'll show you matching colors, and you can kind of go down a rabbit hole and find some samples that you might want to try out in your space. Painting a wall is a lot of effort, but I'm telling you, it makes the biggest difference, and everything else in your space will feel transformed as well because it will be like on a completely different canvas. My last swap is to swap out cooler toned light bulbs for warmer toned ones. So if you don't know, you measure light temperature in what's called kelvins, and the scale goes from 2000, which is really warm, to 8,000, which is really blue and cold. I would say the rule of thumb for most spaces like your living rooms, bedrooms, cozier spaces is like a 2700 is kind of a good way to go with that. Whereas in your kitchens, bathrooms, where you need more like task lighting because you're cooking, you need to really be able to see what you're doing. Maybe you're doing your makeup in your bathroom. You want something a touch cooler, which feels like a bit brighter. So maybe like 3,000, but that's really on the warm end. You really want to keep those lights warm, or else they're going to feel very like fluorescent and office building like, which is not cozy at all. So if you're buying a light bulb for a lamp or another type of light like that, you can look on the box and it will tell you the color temperature. If you have those canned lightings or recessed lights in your home, normally you can change those yourself. So if you get up on a ladder and kind of just lightly pull on those lights, You can look at the sort of bottom of them. They'll be attached to your ceiling through a wire, so don't like pull them all the way down. But if you just pull on it and you can see a little switch or like a dial, you can usually dial it a little bit warmer. And you have to do that to every single one of your recessed lights. We did that in the house that we just lived in when we moved in, because when they were installed, they were pretty cool and we wanted them even warmer. So anyway, you can usually do that yourself with any recessed lights. All right, those are my 10 tips for making your home feel cozier. One bonus tip though is to really take your time with these things. This is not something that you have to just do in one weekend or in one fell swoop, bringing a bunch of new things into your space. Take your time. It really doesn't have to happen overnight, and that will allow you to really be intentional about what you're bringing into your space, which, as we know, makes your space more cozy in itself. So yeah, hopefully this was helpful and inspires you a little bit with your own space. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.